On day 3 of the Dalton highway, I was going up this climb called Beaver Slide, and it's where I was pushing my bike up, and it was just like raining, and I hadn't had service in 3 days, so I couldn't check the weather or anything. And this car comes down, and they roll down their window and they go, "Have you heard it's going to rain?" And I was like, what do you mean?
Read the room.
So I just was like, well, you have nowhere to, you just keep moving. So I kept moving, slept in a pit toilet that night. And as I was like, sitting there in the pit toilet in my bivvy, I was like, you are going to finish this. There's no way you are going to quit because you're not going to go through that again. You're not going over Beaver Slide again.
Welcome to That's Her Problem, the podcast where women who lead, connect, and rewrite the rules get real about building community. The challenges we face aren't always the same as everyone else's. But here's the truth. A city that's good for women is good for everyone. I'm your host, Patty Weens. Hello, subscribers, watchers, and listeners. Welcome back. If you're streaming this program anywhere other than YouTube, you may not know that I've launched a new podcast with a focus on Winnipeg civic elections. There's been a lot of commotion at City Hall lately, and because this is an election year here in Winnipeg, we need to shake things up. There's a lot of politicians who say that they want public engagement, but don't respect us when we actually engage. It's a long story, but if you're interested in finding out more, just go to ballotbabes.com. My friend Sam Biko and I work on it together with the purpose of demystifying local politics and encouraging people to vote. In the light of the, I guess you could say, darkness of everyday events right now, it's easy to get distracted and think that national and international politics are the most impactful. But the truth is that the kind of politics that truly impacts your everyday are at the most local level, from who fixes the potholes, always the potholes, to police budgets, bike lanes, and even sewer plants. If you're not in Winnipeg, chances are the politics of it all are very familiar. As a little bonus for you non-YouTube followers, I'll drop an episode in the feed. It'll be our 3rd episode, but it's a good one, where we drop some video clips of council meetings and explain the strong mayor model. Also, check out my book at your local library or bookstore. It's the 2nd book in the series, The City Project. The book title is That'll Never Work Here, Challenging the Myths Around Biking in a Winter City. We had an event at the University of Winnipeg this week with Dr. Gino D'Estasio, where we discussed both books, and I'll drop that as an extra episode in the next few days. Remember that we would love to hear your feedback. Literally, hear it. Just go to pattybikes.com/podcast and send us a voice memo. You can also support this podcast from there by clicking on the Patreon link. I appreciate your help and attention. Let's get to today's special guest now. Today's guest is Ashleigh Myles. Ashleigh is an endurance cyclist and race organizer based in Halifax, Nova Scotia. Ashleigh set the record for the fastest female to ride the Pan American Highway solo and unsupported. In the process, she unknowingly set a record for South America. The Pan American Highway runs from Prudhoe Bay, Alaska to Ushuaia, Argentina. It's approximately 22,500 kilometers with 190,000 meters of elevation, spanning 2 continents and 13 countries. It's the longest road in the world. She started her journey in August and ended in December of 2025. Ashleigh, welcome to That's Her Problem.
Hi, thank you.
Congratulations on your new records. Can you please tell our audience how many records and what they were?
So I set 2 records. One was for the Pan American Highway, and then the other was for South America. Both were for female, solo, and unsupported. Did not know about the South America one until I finished. And this was all sort of verified by the World Ultracycling like body. And then they sort of, once they verify it, they go to Guinness, and then Guinness says, okay, good, you got this. Here you go. So that's kind of how that process works. But yeah, so two records set, which is really cool.
That is so cool, because I was reading on your Instagram and you said that there were men who had broken records before. They kept sort of passing each other's records. Is that how it works? And then you said, no, I feel like I need to do this.
Yeah, I mean, I've for the past how many years I've been seeing like, oh, cool, like there's this guy that's broken this record or set this record, but there was never any like mention of a female, and I was like, what? Like, how is that possible?
Why is there no woman doing this thing?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I was like, well, nobody's doing it. I kind of want to try, and so
Oh my God.
now, so now there is a record, and I mean, like if any woman goes out there and breaks it, that's what it's there for. So
That
yeah.
is so cool. I was thinking about this as a mom of two girls. In the first portion of your ride through Alaska, you really like lived that question, who would you choose, the man or the bear? And the burning question that I have is, did you feel safe?
Actually, surprisingly, though there were times where I was like, is this a good idea? But then, yeah, I mean, there were a lot of animals, a lot of wild animals. I saw a lot of bears. And a lot of the bears are just pretty chill. I just talked to them as I was passing, had my little like bell, and it was fine. It was fine. It was a little nerve wracking when I saw my first bear. I was like cresting this hill, and I didn't see the bear. The bear didn't see me, and we both saw each other. And I was like, okay,
Okay.
I'm just gonna talk and talk and talk, and it just was like, all right, and just kept eating berries or
Berries.
whatever it was doing. I was like, oh, that's
Okay.
great.
Wow. And yeah, as a Canadian too, you're like, wildlife. That's okay. There's wildlife out there. I'm going to be
Mhm.
okay with that. And you're living in Halifax, but where are you from?
I'm from Vancouver, BC.
Okay.
Yeah.
So did you do a lot of riding in Vancouver as well?
When I was a kid, I rode my bike a lot. I didn't really think about doing long rides. Bikes were just for like getting around, going to friends' places. This one time, my friend and I like wanted to go to my grandmother's place. And so we just went on this bike ride, and it's like 7 kilometers or maybe 10 kilometers actually. And we showed up at her door, and she's like, what are you doing here? It's so far. And it's,
Does your
oh
mom know
no.
you're here?
Yeah. So we like hung out, ate some watermelon, and they drove us back home. And I was like, I don't know, maybe 10. So
That's
that
so
was a ways to
great.
go. And I thought about that on my ride, and I was like, huh, it's kind of like that. Like everybody's still worried.
Exactly, right? What was, in general, the scariest moment of your ride? Not just in Alaska, but, you spanned, like when you look at the map, it's just from the they call it ice to ice,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And from the tip of the world to the bottom of the world on this one side of the hemisphere. And there must have been such a variety of things that you saw. What was the scariest moment that you lived?
Cars are a big one. Yeah.
Yeah.
There were a lot of sketchy moments with cars. So like cars, some wildlife, some people. I think like maybe one of the scariest moments, and it's not like scary, somebody's coming to get me scary. It's scary in the sense where it's like, oh wow, this is actually really big. Can I do this? I was I think I was cycling in Honduras, and it was before the sun came up. And I was like, you have to cycle, I don't know, however many kilometers today to get to whatever town. And I was just like really overwhelmed, and it was really scary. And I was like, holy crap, like, can you do this? And it was just like, it was scary. It's scary because you're like, you're in it, you're doing it, you can do it, but it's like, you just kind of freak yourself out, you psych yourself out. And I think that's like one of the scariest parts of this whole thing is like, there's bears and people that you can confront and overcome, but it's like, when it's a fear within yourself, you're like, that's okay. How are we going to deal with this? So
The
that's probably,
expectation of like, I have this goal, and if I don't get there, where do I sleep? What do I eat?
yeah, yeah, that's probably the scariest part. And that wasn't
Yeah.
one time, it was many times.
Right. Right. Was every day like that? You would, I guess so. You have to plan. You look at the map and you go, plan A is getting to this point. Did you
Yeah,
always have to have a plan B?
I'd say for the first half, I had, like, plan A, B, and C, and if those don't work out, then we'll just kinda figure out what to do, and then closer to the end of the ride, I was like, "I don't have any plan, I'm just gonna ride and get to whatever town I get to, if I get to a town, and then figure it out from there." So, yeah, I think the fear became less and less the further I went, which is nice. It took a while, but yeah, it was a good feeling to
Oh, that's awesome. How many days in do you figure that was that you're like, well, it is what it is?
when I got to Colombia, when I got to
Oh
finally got
my
to
God,
South
that's like
America,
3/4 of the way
I
down.
I think I know at that I think at that point, I'd been, like, sick twice already, and I was like, "Cool, you know what? This is South America, I've been looking forward to this, and I have no idea what's gonna happen, and I don't really care anymore because I'm in South America and I'm just gonna ride my bike."
Yeah.
And the fear just kinda, like, faded away. It was still there. It was like, there's you have to have some sort of, like, some fear to keep you in check, but overall, I was like, "Whatever happens, it's gonna happen. Here we go." And it was just
Yeah,
great.
right?
Yeah.
On your Instagram, you said, over the past 2 years, I've been poring over whether this would be a good idea or if I could even do it. I'm not a professional cyclist, not that fast, and I'm nowhere near the most hardcore bike packer out there. So, how did you get here? Let's hear your superhero origin story. How did this come about that your life sort of took this turn and you said, I'm going to do this thing?
I started to get into, like, touring or cycle touring back in 2016. I think my partner and we wanted to go traveling and we're like, don't really want to go backpacking. Maybe we'll go by bike. So we looked into it and it just sort of snowballed from there. I bought I bought a few books about like people who had gone cycle touring. And then her name is Juliana Buring. Don't know if I'm saying her last name correctly, but she is like, um, I think she's the first woman to like set the round the world record. And I read her book and I was like, wow, that's cool. All the things that she did, all the things she overcame. And from there on out, I was kind of like, maybe maybe we can do this. I'm just like a person who likes to ride a bike, and why not try to do this thing? And then 2 years prior to starting, so in 2023, I was on a hike with my partner. And I was like, I kind of want to do something big. I don't really know, like maybe around the world, but I don't think I want to do that quickly. He's like, what about the Pan American? Like, oh yeah, yeah, maybe that. So I thought about it hard.
Huh.
Uh, I started to ride my bike even, and I was like, yeah, I think I can do it. I think I'm ready. Like, I want something big, I want something longer. So I looked and I was like, there's no records. Like, of course, women have ridden the Pan American, but there's no record of somebody doing it day after day to try to set a record or break a record. And so I thought,
Mhm.
okay, well, let's try. Yeah, and that's how that fell into place. And prior to all of this, as I was preparing within those 2 years, I actually came across a National Geographic magazine, and it was I think it's from 2010. And there's an article about a guy who took public transit from Washington, D.C. all the way down to Ushuaia. And I found it and I was like, I wonder, like, has this been in my head since 2010? Like, this idea of going all the way down? Maybe, I don't know. But it was just super cool to come across that. Maybe it's been brewing for
Since
13
that trip
years.
to your grandma's house?
Yeah, since I trip to my grandma's house, and then again with this like magazine, and then again with, yeah, I don't know. I think things just
Yeah.
all these little pieces start to fall together, and it just sort of accumulates into something like this.
And so when you say that you were preparing for 2 years, what does that look like?
Well, I say I was preparing for 2 years. I was thinking about it for the I'd say, the first year, and then I was like, "Oh my god, it's next year." And, it's like this deadline. I'm really good at procrastinating and then getting things done, but the first year was like, "I'm gonna apply to Guinness and see what the whole thing's about, see if it's like how long this process takes." So I did that in February of 2023. And then I kind of waited a little bit. I was training, so I was riding my bike, going to the gym, like making sure I was building strength. And then I started to look for sponsors at the end of 2024. Close, yeah. Which I found out is too late to look for sponsors. You have to do that much, much earlier. So it was a massive like learning curve at the end of 2024, beginning of 2025, and then I was like basically fundraising for many months until I left. Yeah, and by the time I left, I was so burnt. I got to Alaska and I was like, do I even like riding my bike? I don't know. Am I even gonna do this? This was like, it just like, what they say, like, um, I forget the saying, but like, getting to the start is the hardest
It's the
part.
hardest
And
part, yeah.
and actually, yeah, that was very hard. I got to Alaska, I was like, do I just start now? Like, is this it? And yeah, it was like I was just burnt out until that point, and then like now you get to go and like burn yourself out again. So, yeah, it was quite the trip.
So was it one of those, like, as I always say, "Oh, I don't know, I haven't ridden my bike in a few days. It's -30 outside. Maybe today is the day. It's not gonna happen." And then you take 1, 2, 3 pedals and you're like, "Oh, now I remember why I love this." Was
Uh,
that what it was like?
it was kind of the first little bit out of Prudhoe Bay. It was raining. So I got on my bike and I was just kind of
Oh.
cold and wet, and I was just thinking like, what? Why did you start this? And then the first 30 kilometers out of Prudhoe Bay, there was this guy who was like doing a race through Alaska. I met him and he just like, we chatted for a minute, and he had this like hollow look in his eyes, and he was like, do you have spare brake pads? I'm like, mm-hmm. He's like, do you have spare tubes? Yes. Do you have bear spray? I'm like, uh-huh. Is there anything that you need? I'm like, no. He's like, okay, well, you're gonna need all that stuff. And I'm like, wow, really? Is it that bad? Is the Dalton Highway that tough? And uh, a few days later, I was like, yeah, I'm sure I had like hollow eyes and was like, oh wow.
You
It's
understood the
true.
poor guy.
Oh wow, it's true. I met some other cyclists like on my second to last day there, and we were just on like crossing paths, and they're like, "Did you hear about the flood?" I'm like, "Yeah," because they were
Oh
going
my
north, and I was like, "Yeah, you're probably going to be stuck here for a few days." And they're like, "Ah, yeah, we're just gonna maybe keep riding and camp out." And I'm like, "Okay," like it's wild. And then the Dalton Highway was over, and I got into like the pavement part of Alaska, and it felt like part two already.
Yeah.
Part one had taken a few days, and now part two, and it's just like, whoa, okay, here we go, getting thrown into it. Um, yeah, but I already knew I was gonna have some tough times on the Dalton Highway, and that was true. That was true.
Speaking of part 1 and part 2, one thing that you posted that I didn't quite understand was type 2 and type 3 adventures. Can you explain that a little bit? You said it was time for some type 2 adventure and then type 3 adventure. And I was
Oh,
like, I don't get it. Are we talking about fitness zones or?
so essentially, type two refers to like when you're doing the thing, it's not really enjoyable, but when you finish it, you're like, I would do it again. And
Right.
I don't know if type 3 exists, but I think, type 3 would be like no, not at all, never again.
Oh,
And
okay.
when you have type 1 fun, it's like it's just enjoyable overall, you know. But yeah, type 2 fun. I'd say this ride was like a lot of it. I want to say it was type 2, but there was definitely a good mix of type 1 and type 2 fun. Like a lot of, I would go back there and do it again. And then instances of, wow, no, like the Dalton Highway, it's probably going to be a few years before I think about maybe going back. So,
Is that the one that was the gravel part that you were
yeah,
saying?
the Dalton Highway is about 700 kilometers long, and it follows the pipeline from Prudhoe Bay. And so the highway is just, it's like, well, it's just for maintenance essentially. So there's a lot of truckers. It's mostly mud and some gravel. And then, yeah, they also mix some salt in with the mud. At least that's what I've read. So that when it freezes, it doesn't like, it kind of
Mm.
keeps traction, I believe. I could be wrong on that. But yeah, so it's just mud really. And if you're riding it in the rain, it's, you're riding through mud. Uh,
Ugh.
yeah, there was a,
And how long did it take you? Sorry.
um, it took me 4 days, I think, to ride. Uh, it rained. It rained almost every day. Um, and yeah, I wore through both sets of brake pads on day 3. There was a few climbs that I just couldn't ride up because it was just mud. And I would had to push my bike up, and as I was pushing my bike up, I could hear my brake pads wearing down because you can't clean your brake pads or your rotor because you're still riding through this mud, and so it doesn't really matter what you do. When I went to go change out my brake pads, there was a little rock that was shoved in where my piston is, so it was like keeping the brake pad like close to the rotor, so just wearing it down even more and more and more. Wow, that's nice.
Oh, wow. Was there any time where you just any time during the whole thing where you just wanted to give up?
Uh, yes. Um,
Or how many times did that happen, I guess?
so I think it was, so there were times that I wanted to give up, but so on day 3 of the Dalton Highway, I was going up this climb called Beaver Slide, and it's where I was pushing my bike up, and it was just like raining, and I hadn't had service in 3 days, so I couldn't check the weather or anything. And this car comes down, and they roll down their window and they go, "Have you heard it's gonna rain?" And I was like, "Hmm." What do you
Dude,
mean?
read the room.
What do you mean more rain? And they're like, "Yeah, it's gonna rain." And I was like, "Oh, wow, okay." Uh, so I just was like, "Well, you have nowhere to, you just keep moving." So I kept moving, slept in a pit toilet that night, and as I was like, you know, sitting there in the pit toilet in my bivvy, I was like, "You you are going to finish this. There's no way you are going to quit, because you're not gonna go through that again. You're not going over Beaver Slide again."
Just the thought of, like, if I have to go back that way, there's no freaking way that I'm doing
Yeah,
that.
like, there's no way you're starting, and I kept that throughout the entire ride. Like, when I was in Peru, there were a lot of really not great drivers, and I had a few close calls, and I was, like, so mad. I was like, "If you hit me and I have to start over, I'm gonna be really pissed off. Not
Yeah.
because you hit me, but because I have to start again."
Wow, especially at that point, you're like, "I'm more than halfway done here."
Deep down inside, I knew if I didn't finish, I would do it again. Because
Yeah.
it's just something that I can't just leave it out, like, I
Unfinished.
have to do it. I have to do it, and so I was very determined to finish it, even though there were instances where I was like, "I'm gonna quit, I'm gonna quit. No, no, no." I was like, "No, you can't quit. You're not going back. You know, you've worked this hard to get here." That's a,
You
like,
got
and
over Beaver Hill or whatever it's called.
yeah, And like it's and if I was having a tough day, I'm like, listen, you are like super lucky to be here. You're super privileged to have this opportunity. You're like, don't, don't. And all of a sudden, I was like, you know what? It's great. We're good. We're here. We're doing this. It's fun. There are good days. There are bad days. And yeah, it's just part of it.
I think therapy is cheaper and quicker, but
It it is. It
is it
is.
though? Not as effective.
Not as effective.
So, like, how long were your days?
They varied when I was going through the States and Canada. I tried to be out and about for like 16 hours. My goal was to start at 6 a.m. and end at 10 p.m. Um, but that really varied depending on like the weather, where just a lot of things. But I tried to have a plan, like a 5-day plan, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to ride 250 kilometers tomorrow, and this is the terrain, this is what the weather is doing, and then just kind of kept track like that. I was pulling off in the States 170-kilometer days, day after day. The weather was pretty good. I could cover the distances. Like I sort of knew the terrain already. I'd sort of ridden through some of those states in the past. But then when I got into Mexico, it was like, whoa, okay, we're gonna have to readjust and figure out how things work here. A bit of a culture shock. And so my days changed there. Um, I started to stay inside a lot more from Mexico, basically southward, just
Why
because
is that?
there was a lot of people everywhere. So I would ride and ride and ride and be like, okay, if I'm going to camp here, where could I camp? And then the places that I would look for, I'd be like, okay, well, I don't feel comfortable staying outside in a lot of these places, mostly because I was like on a main road or on a road that was going through a lot of towns that a lot of people lived on. I think if I was going off road, like into the mountains, I would have been able to camp anywhere. I might have felt a bit safer to do that. But I think a lot of it was like, if I'm going to camp and, set up my bivvy here in these trees, am I going to be able to sleep at night? Sleep's pretty important. And so my goal was to make sure I had like at least 6 hours of sleep every night. And it kind of worked out staying indoors because there's just places to stay all over the place. And so if I got to one town and there was nothing, I could scroll to the next town and there'd be something. And I just felt safer. It was more efficient. From Mexico, I got sick. I had food poisoning. And so that's where I decided that every day, instead of eating street food, I'm going to go and find like a grocery store or somewhere where I can buy dinner, breakfast, and lunch. So I got like my 3 meals for the day. And I just had this routine going. And, budget wise, it worked out pretty well because I was getting like just basically a lot of carbs and sugar. and
Yeah, I can imagine.
and some
Oh, shoot.
protein.
Have to eat some carbs and sugar.
Yeah, so it all kind of worked out in the end. People were lovely, lovely, but it's just my own. I was like, if I don't feel like I can sleep at night, I'm not going to be able to ride well tomorrow. And I'm not going to be able to ride well the next day. And when I have to continue this day after day after day after day, it really compounds. And, I think part of the reason I stayed outside a lot in Canada and the States is because I'm familiar. I know where to camp. I know like the customs. And then when I got into Mexico, it was just like a culture shock. I'm like, wow, this is really cool. Where do people camp? How do you wild camp here? And yeah, just going through really populated areas made it a little more difficult to find out where to camp. There's a few spots I came across in Mexico where I'm like, I could camp here, but it's middle of the day, so I have to keep going.
Ah, I see.
Yeah.
Right.
So there were instances where I would have pulled off had it been the right time.
Did your food poisoning cost you some days? Because I saw the videos of you kind of talking about how I'm still not feeling that great. Did you have to kind of stay put for a couple of days?
Yeah, so my first sickness was in Mexico, and I went to the grocery store, to go grab some food, and I was like, I don't really feel hungry." Uh, and I realized that was sick. I was sick all night, and then the following day, I was like, "You know what? Like, you can't stay in one place, you have to keep riding." So I rode about 100 kilometers that day, was sick en route, and when I got to, I don't know, the 100-kilometer mark, I was like, you you have to get better." So I pulled off and, found a town and ended up staying there for 2 full days. I got some medication, basically drank fluids and bread and crackers and bananas and tried to feel better. And then I got sick again in Costa Rica. Same sort of thing, except it didn't cost me days as much as like mileage. Same sort of thing. I got sick. And then I was like, well, you're either going to stay in this town or you're going to ride. And so I ended up riding and was sick en route.
Oh, jeez. Oh,
And then I got sick again, uh, I think at the end of Colombia going into Ecuador. It didn't cost me days off the bike, but it cost me the amount of
miles or
miles because I wasn't like throwing up or anything, but I was like, I had a cough, my bones were aching, definitely
oh.
had some sort of fever, and I was like, well, if you're not throwing up and you don't need to be near a toilet, you can ride your bike. And
Oh
so
my gosh. You're just a tyrant.
yeah, so I just kept riding and just took my time, was like, it's absolutely gorgeous, so cool. I guess I'm just gonna take it all in and be sick, and it was okay for me. It just kind of sucked because I wasn't able to really ride that far, and didn't have energy to ride that far. Um, and I think like when I was sick, in Mexico and then in Costa Rica, within that time, I would estimate I lost about maybe 20 pounds because I was still riding, but I wasn't really able to eat. And when
Yeah.
I got to Panama before I think the second to last day I was in Panama before I packed up my bike to fly to Colombia, I kind of looked in the mirror and I was like, "Oh God," I could see my ribs, I could see like my shoulder. I was like, this is new. Like I was like, you have to eat. You have to make sure that you can eat because I was riding. I was putting in kilometers. I was so tired. Didn't have any
Yeah.
energy to really like bring my bike upstairs. And there's a lot of places where you bring your bike upstairs. um,
And you
so
bike in all your gear, like you were unsupported, so you had
yeah,
everything with you.
yeah. So I told myself like, okay, you are gonna have to get calories in you and put some more meat on you because you're not going to have energy to finish. I had 10,000 kilometers left. And I was like, that's not going to work.
Wow. Yikes. So, do you think that those days that you were sick were some of the worst days you had during your journey?
Yeah. Being sick in Mexico, like in that room, it's like, man, why? Why
Yeah.
is this happening? Like, I, I told myself, you're going to ride your bike every day, even if you're sick. And not being able to ride my bike when I was sick, I didn't really clue in that that would be a thing that would happen to me because usually when I get sick, I can still move around. I get better rather quickly. Um, but this was a whole other thing. And man, so that was pretty demoralizing. But I
Yeah.
mean, what can you do but try to get better?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If I were your mom, I would have found you and I would have brought you home. I'll tell you that much. Who did you have at home kind of checking in on you?
Well, I had a tracker, so there was a lot of people who were, I guess, checking in, but my partner was checking in, my parents were checking in. Everybody was like, "All right, what's happening? Are you okay?" I'm like, "I'm just sick. I got this medication. I'll be fine."
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm in this place, in this town.
In this foreign
Everybody's
country.
in this foreign country.
Oh my
Everybody's really
God.
nice. Like, it's okay.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like that's where I would have drawn the line and said, "You're coming home right now." But good for you. Your bike was kind of keeping you happy and keeping you going, and you
Yeah.
knew that you needed that. This episode is brought to you by Shifter's new online course, The Ultimate Guide to Bike Commuting and Urban Cycling. This course gives you all the knowledge you need to make the bike a bigger part of your daily life. It's created by Kaylin Klingbeil and Tom Babin. This is so fitting because Tom's YouTube channel was the catalyst for my winter cycling journey from casual bike rider to year-round bike commuter. Chances are you're already riding your bike a lot, but you might know someone who isn't and who would like to make the transition but just doesn't know how. I'm telling you, this is exactly what they need. Find the link to the course in the show notes and on my website at pattybikes.com/podcast. What was sort of the shortest and the longest days you had in hours and kilometers?
I think the shortest was probably 60 kilometers, I want to
That's
say.
when you
And
were
that,
sick?
no, actually, that was, so I got my bike like fixed in Calgary. I got it serviced and I just rode like 60 kilometers to a campsite to get out of Calgary, out of town. But then the second sort of shortest day was 68 kilometers, so not too far away. And that was on the Dalton Highway. That was actually from Beaver Slide to Yukon River Camp. Uh, I was trying to get to Yukon River Camp after reaching the Arctic Circle. And a guy was like, "Yeah, it's only like 70 kilometers. You can do it." And then after Beaver Slide, I was like, "Oh God, I'm not making it tonight." So I was like, I'm going to get there. And then the following day, I'm going to do 200 kilometers to get to Fairbanks, 200 kilometers and 4,000 meters of elevation, half of which is on a muddy highway. So I got up at like 4. I left at 4 in the morning and got into Fairbanks around 7 o'clock at night. I had very little stop time. I walked my bike up a lot of climbs on the Dalton Highway because I couldn't ride up. And then, yeah, that was my like shortest day to get to a longer day. And my longest day, I think, was about 312 kilometers. I think that might have been in Canada somewhere, maybe the Canada or the US, but I did a few stints where I like rode at night. I did 435 kilometers, I think, on my last couple days before the end. And then actually to get to Calgary, I rode about 600 kilometers in one go to get to the bike
One
shop.
go? Like
Yeah. But
overnight?
I had,
Or
I had, I had like an hour nap, but then I had to leave because there were coyotes. And so I was like, I'm going to get to the bike shop because they were going to service my bike. So I got my bike serviced at Ridley's in Calgary, and they were going to do it on my birthday. I was like, perfect. I'm going to get my bike fixed on my birthday, go and hang out. Like, it's going to be great. And I was like, but you need to get there. So I just went for it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
What do you think was like the best thing that happened in your journey?
I think one of the coolest things, so I had no expectations of what the Andes were going to be like. Getting to Colombia and starting to go up into the mountains, I was just like, wow, this is so cool. I love every bit of this. There's just people living, their homes are right on the side of the mountains as you go up. And it was just really cool, like witness to ride through people's lives, and like they don't know what I'm doing. I can see like they're gardening, they're playing with their dogs, whatever. This is just so cool. Yeah,
And
that
as
was
you're
like,
passing them, they have no idea about Beaver Slide. They'd
nope,
have no idea the crazy things that you've just done.
no clue. And that's the best part. They're just like, oh, hi, hi.
Yeah, and you're like, "Hi. Don't mind me. Just breaking some records." I feel like it would be so great to have you write all this down for the next woman who decides to do the same thing, because no woman has done it. Doing something like this is one thing if you're a man, let's face it.
Mhm.
But if you're a woman doing this, it's a whole other kind of mindset that you have to have. What do you think that your advice would be for women who want to try this?
So I think one of the biggest things for me was having a good support system at home. And so I think if any other, women wants to try this, people around you will hopefully will support you and be there for you. And so I think that makes it like, this doesn't make it possible. Well, it does make it possible, but it makes it like, it makes you feel like you can do it. Like, if something goes wrong, these people will still be there for you. You're still coming back to the support system, and they have you, your community, the people around you, like that's, they lift you up and they help you achieve these goals. Um, and that's definitely part of it, for at least for me. But the other part of it is like, if you have this thing inside, you're like, I really want to do this, but I don't know if I can do it. I don't really know how to describe the feeling. Like,
It's like this drive that you have inside that you can't explain and you can't
yeah,
shove it down because it's something that you just like, I can't get this out of my head.
yeah, it's just this feeling that you have. You're like, I just think I need to do this. I'm not too sure why, but I think I
Uh-huh.
need to do this. And the people around you will hopefully say, okay, well, how can we help you get there? How do you want to get there? And then, together you sort of make it happen. But it starts with you really wanting to do it and people around you saying, okay, a little nuts, but we can do
You're
it.
nuts, but yeah, you got this. One of the things that I got that kind of broke me a little bit was watching you have a breakdown. And there was
Oh,
times where you were like, yeah, the breakdowns were necessary, is what you said in your CBC interview.
yeah.
And those are the parts that kind of the I think that's what makes it a type 2. You're like, I'm breaking down. I don't know. I need to cry a little. And then when that's over, you're like, okay, I'm going to keep going now because I'm not going back.
Pretty much, yeah, that's type 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, the breakdowns are necessary, at least for me. That one of the, like, the scary bits when I was riding in Honduras, when I was having my, like, "Oh, how are you gonna do this? I don't know if you're gonna be able to finish this." That definitely one of them. I had a breakdown there.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
just riding my bike, and I was thinking about how scary this is. Oh my god, what are you doing? Are you gonna be able to finish this? I had planned on finishing in 95 days, and at that point, I realized that wasn't gonna happen. So it was like, expectations. What have you done? What have you done to yourself? But then I just kind of kept riding, and I was like, okay, well, you've come this far. You're just gonna keep going. And it was
You
fine.
just, you're fine.
Yeah.
Everything's fine. I think that, like, aside from the physical exhaustion of all, like, muscles that you didn't even know you had every night when you're going to sleep and you're feeling everything, I think of the mind exhaustion of being alone with your thoughts all day. What was that like?
Yeah, being alone with your thoughts. To be honest, most of the time there was just a lot of cool stuff to see. So I was just like, that's cool. I'm just busy looking at things and thinking about what I'm going to eat next. And do I have enough water? And is this car coming too close? And all these
Right, because
things
you
that,
all these things, right? That you have to constantly like that's how I feel like the riding a bike in winter is too. Is there like you constantly is this ice? No. Is it sand? Is it pavement? Is this car seeing me? But I didn't realize that the same would be when you're going such long distances.
yeah. And it's the same thing, but what might be different is if you let yourself think about the end, which I made the mistake of thinking about the end when I was in Alaska. I was like, you can't do this because,
Oh my God, yes.
because like you have so
It's
much to
4
get
months
through
away. Yeah.
and this is
Yeah.
not helpful. And so I just started thinking about the next couple days, maybe the next week. What's that going to look like? And then what's the next, few hours going to look like and then it's just, all the, logistical things that you have to think about when you're on your own take, take more space as you go along. And then
Yeah.
before you know it, you're done.
You're there.
Um, and yeah, but there are times though when at the end of the day, you're just kind of, you have your routine and then you go to bed and you wake up and you're like, actually, before going to bed, I always thought, well, if I didn't just pass out, I'd be like,
Yeah.
okay, when that alarm goes off in 4 or 5 hours, you're gonna get up and you're gonna do the same thing over again. And that was exhausting to think about. But that was
Oh,
the only point during the day where I truly felt like, oh my God, again?
what have I done?
And but then I'd pass out, wake up and be like, all right, here we go.
Can't stay here. Oh, that's so cool. I was thinking, let's move on a little bit to sort of the nerdy stuff. What's the
Okay.
one piece of gear that you were so happy that you had with you?
Oh, so many.
Maybe there's so many, right? What was your favorite thing that you're like, oh, this is the thing?
I mean, I think the aero bars on my bike, it's part of the bike, but such a great thing. Some people ride without them on long distances, and I think they're great. They're great for extra storage. They're great for different hand positions. You can be just there's so much you can do with them.
I don't think of things like that. I'm not a long distance bike rider. So to me it's like, oh, good to know if I ever crazy enough to do what Ashley did. I'll make sure I have the aero bars.
Actually, I had some camp suds with me, a bottle of it, and every night I would wash my bibs. If I could wash my bibs, I would wash them. And that, along with chamois cream, zero problems.
Okay, there you go. Good
So
to
I think if
know.
we're looking at pieces of gear, I think it's something that can prevent issues on the bike. That's probably a good thing to have.
Good to know because you would really like that's the one issue you really can't get around. If you have issues with sores and stuff, then it's
Yeah.
over. You're going back on Beaver Slide. That's never gonna die.
No.
So was there a piece of gear that you're like, this was useless?
No, actually, I used every piece of gear, which is new because I usually bring everything in the kitchen sink. But this time, every piece of gear was pretty good. Well, I brought 2 power banks, and I only needed the second power bank maybe a few times. So I maybe could have gone with just one. I do have like a dynamo hub, so I was able to charge things on the
Oh,
go, which
that's
makes,
amazing.
2 power banks maybe too much, but in the back of my mind, I'm just thinking of the worst case scenario, and 2 power banks was good.
Yeah, I as a mom again, I think that's good. Well, this has been so good. I wanna move on to the rapid fire questions. I have a couple of questions that are a surprise for you.
Okay.
And the first one is if you were a bicycle, what bicycle would you be?
An endurance road bike
Yeah.
because that's my bike.
Yeah. And you just keep going.
Yeah,
You think about it, you cry a little bit, and you get up the next day and you keep going.
that's right.
I love it. That's great. What is your superpower?
If I had a superpower, I think time travel, if that's
Oh, yeah,
possible.
that's wishful thinking now, not your real superpower, but
Oh,
you're
oh,
like, you
okay.
wish you had.
I wish
I
I
think
had
you
time
have
travel.
I think you have some pretty amazing superpowers that you might not quite realize right now because you're still kind of in shock a little bit after just finishing your journey. But I think as you settle into your life and you start to look back, you're going to see how pretty amazing you are and what you did is. So, but time travel, okay. To the future, then get to the end of that road quicker, or
I think at times, yeah, but right now I think I would go back and relive some of it because it was really great. Yeah.
that is that's super cool. The last question I have is, do you have a book recommendation by a female author?
Yeah. So Two Trees Make a Forest by Jessica Lee. I read this book a couple of years ago. She goes to Taiwan and she like experiences her family history and nature and she writes about it. And it's like really calming to read and really sort of meditative, I guess. It's just really beautifully written, and it's been in the back of my mind for since I read it. It's like really, really well done, and that connection between family and place and nature and history, it's all there, and it's something that I thought about when I was writing. It's like this is cool, thinking about this book.
Right.
Yeah.
Because you're on your bike, you have that connection that's a little bit stronger. And so the name of the book is Two Trees Make a Forest
Yeah.
by Jessica
Lee.
Lee.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Do you have a book in your future?
To write one? Probably, yeah. Yeah, I think I probably
Yeah.
will. If not just for myself to like, because I recorded daily diaries. So I have about 119 days worth of audio diaries.
Oh.
So there's some stuff in there.
Oh, yeah, girl, you have to transcribe that
Yeah.
yeah, that's great. I was wondering if you did because it's so exhausting to just write and then what? You get to the end of the day and now you have to write things down, right? But
Yeah.
did you record it as you went kind of thing or on the
I
road
did.
sometimes?
Yeah, yeah. I would
Wow.
record it on the road. I would record it before bed in the morning. There's a lot of times when I could record, but I was busy eating. So
Yeah, I
I,
bet. I noticed that some of your Instagram posts and some of your blog posts actually were third party. So someone else was posting for you. Was that your partner?
yeah, I had actually two friends that had access to the audio diaries, and they would listen to them, and I would chat with them, and then they would post uh, a little bit on social media and then on the blog.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
So what's next for you then?
I think just enjoying riding with people. There were a lot of times on the road where I really wanted to have people around me to experience it. And I think I'm just going to do a lot of that this year and then get back into doing some races next year.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, we are excited to see where you're going to go next. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for sharing your story with my listeners and my viewers. And I hope that we get to catch up again and you can tell me what next adventure
That
you're
sounds
up to.
good.
Thank you so much, Ashleigh, for the awesome conversation. I cannot imagine. That adventure must have been so amazing. If you want to find out more, go to Ashleigh's website at ashleighmiles.ca and check out the resources she has on there, like the map of her adventures and a ton of pictures and blog entries from when she was riding. I'll make sure to drop the link in the description. Thank you now to my Patreon supporters, Andrew, Michael, Nikki, Tim, Halls Emporium, Luke, Linda, Rod, Julia, David, Stephanie, Jason, Emma, Misty, and Adam. The next episode is also super special. Make sure you're tuned in, but for now, that's her problem.